More than a few people were interested in seeing how the two color injectors work. My last video I just showed a pour of a sample of crawls. This time I'm going to kind of go into more in depth of how I control the heat and how I make the colors mix well, and some of the little tricks I use. One of the first things I did when I got my double injector is I took the adapter and I put index marks on it. And I'm not sure if you can see that, but I have a mark on each side that tells me, will make me line that up in the mold perfectly every time. If you can see, that slot lines up with the seam in the mold perfectly. And that will make me, or will force me to set the adapter in the mold the same way every time, therefore giving me a good pour. I don't know if you can see how it lines up. Not great video quality. Even though I'm Brad Pitt, they don't give me the best cameras. So I use that to make it line up perfectly every time. That way I get a good pour. So I'll just set it in the mold, aligned with the seam. The other thing I do is I heat up my injectors. I'll heat those up pretty well. I usually use a torpedo heater. Other people will use either a toaster oven, something like that, but you want your injector tips to be hot. So, first thing I'll do is heat up my plastic. It's already preheated, but I'm just going to give it another little nudge. To make sure there aren't any lumps in it, that sort of thing, because lumps are definitely the enemy of these small injectors. If you get a lump in there, it'll clog it up in a heartbeat. So I'll get my two different colors out. I use different microwaves. I was lucky enough or unlucky enough that my wife's microwave broke out of the house, so I took that one, and then I found an old scrap one that was too old for somebody to use anymore. And so now I have two fairly powerful microwaves to use. Just gotta make sure you get them on different circuits if you go that route. Okay, so I've got my two different colors. Today I'm doing a Bama bug, which is more or less June bug on one side, green pumpkin on the other. One of the first things I do when I'm getting ready to put my small injector in is I'll open it up. I'll open it up and place it into the plastic. And I'll just kind of let that one sit there while I'm doing the same with my other one. When I get it in, I'll evacuate it real slowly. Then I'll suck up some plastic, evacuate it again, suck up another load, evacuate it again, and then do the same thing with the other injector. What that's doing is heating up the inside. Not only do you want the tip heated up, but you want that plunger on the inside heated up as well, because plastic will melt to it, clog it up, or that will help clog your injector. So you want the whole inside of that thing heated up. So I got both my injectors heated up. First thing I'll do is draw in some plastic on both of them. I'll try to wipe off the front side where the two nozzles are going to touch each other. Then I'll bring them over to my mold, set them in, and I'll evacuate them slowly, both at the same time. And I usually hold it for a couple of seconds. I don't know, it's not necessary on all molds, but some it is. Then I'll line that thing up with my index spot on the next one perfectly. And I'll keep going. You'll kind of get a feel eventually for how many shots you can get out of your double injectors depending on what bait you're using. Well, then when I get finished, I'm ready to fill them again. I'll take it over, I'll evacuate it, then fill it again. Make sure you evacuate it when you take it back over, because that plastic on the inside is already it's already setting up. So you want to evacuate that, pull up some new plastic, and get after it again. And I always leave the nozzle in the last bait I poured when I'm pouring multiple molds, because it'll sit there and it'll stay hot that way. If you immediately move it to the next empty mold before you shoot, the plastic that's in the nozzle or in the adapter will set up, and that'll force a clog into your next one. If you leave it in the first one that you shot, it'll pull that it'll pull that setup plastic out of it when you take the adapter out, and it won't be in your next mold. It's kind of important to move fast, especially when you're using the microwave and the Pyrex cups. I normally do these do double injections out of pots, unless I'm doing a small run of something. Now, if I'm doing a small run, I'll normally just mix it up in the microwave because it's much faster. Well, that was 6 finesse mold worms, or finesse worm molds. Now I'm going to do I'm going to do 5 beavers and 5 lizards. Now, these don't hold much plastic, so I can usually get 5 or 6 out of these. Another important thing is to always wear your gloves. I learned the hard way. We all think we're pretty Superman, we're not going to get burned, but me, just like everybody else, thought that in the beginning, and it took me about a week to figure out that I'm going to get burned just like everybody else. So now I always wear my gloves without fail. I never ever touch or mess with plastic without wearing them. And I also wear eye protection every last time, because I really don't want to lose my eyes. Another important thing is to remember, you always got to remember where the bottom is, which side of the bait you want the colors on. Some baits it doesn't matter, you know, like a beaver, but on a lizard, you know, if you want a certain color on bottom or top, just got to make sure you remember where those are. And I marked my molds with those things, so I know. I also I've got 9 finesse worm molds. 3 of them are backwards from the others, so I have to turn them a different way to shoot them or reverse my injectors when I'm ready to do them, so I had to mark those molds. The other thing I do is when I'm finished shooting all my molds, and this is especially important in pots, is I'll leave my injectors in the plastic. By the time you've done 12, 15, maybe 20 molds out of a Pyrex cup, the plastic's going to be starting to set up. So you definitely want to take, and at least in the Pyrex cups, go ahead and take your injectors out. Give your plastic a good mixing, and get it back in the microwave for the next round. Depending on how many baits you're trying to do at once. If you're, you know, I generally try to do, if I'm pouring an order for someone, if someone wants, you know, 4 or 5 bags of finesse worms in a certain color, I'll generally pour 8 or 10, just so I've got them on hand. And that way, when they order again, I can get them back out to them, and I'll sometimes add that color to my side and sell it. I've really found that guys who order custom colors order some pretty good stuff, and they generally order stuff that sells. So, all right, now that we've got those poured, show you what they look like. And hopefully I didn't screw up in front of national TV. Okay. There's a finesse worm. Not sure how good it's going to show up. There's a green pumpkin on one side, sort of a June bug on the other. Here's a twin-tailed lizard. June bug on one side, green pumpkin on the other. Unfortunately, it's on the wrong side. Depending on what you want. Some people like the green pumpkin on bottom. And here is a beaver. That one didn't come out too good. There's a beaver. June bug on one side, green pumpkin on the other. So I'll generally take out all my molds, or get everything demolded while my other plastic's cooking, and just continue to rock on. That's all from the kitchen of Brad Pitt. Thanks.